Hi, everyone. I want to welcome you to this recording of our winning workshop, Resume Fundamentals. This is brought to you by the WIN Center at West Hills College Lemoore. So first off, in understanding resume fundamentals, we need to first ask, why is a resume important? So a resume is important for multiple different things. The first thing is that it's a job application requirement, which means that it's an expectation by the organization that you are applying to be a part of, and you need to make sure that you meet all of those different requirements in the hiring process, and typically that always means a resume is needed. It's also a self-marketing document. It's yourself on paper. It's where you're going to write your personal statement about what you're wanting to accomplish with your career, what your different career goals might be. You also need to list your experience, your skills. Basically, it's a document, it's a one-sheet document that sums up all of yourself in one pretty little package. So it's yourself on paper. It's your own marketing document for yourself. It should also then be persuasive, which means that you want to be speaking about the best things about yourself in that document. It needs to be highlighting all of the things that you've done, your experiences, your education, your past work experiences, the different skills that you've gained, the abilities and traits that you have that you can help apply in that new corporation or organization that you're applying for. It's also your opportunity to stand out from all the other applicants. So typically applicants, they'll all be submitting their resumes in that job application. And so your resume, it's basically the first opportunity that you have to set yourself apart from all the other applicants. And your resume should look different. You want it to be standing out for the right reasons, apart from all the other resumes in that application pool. Lastly, the resume is important because it's the opportunity that you have to get that interview. So the first step in the hiring process is you're going to apply for that job with a great resume and hopefully, fingers crossed, get that interview invitation, okay? So how is your resume used throughout the hiring process? This helps us understand how we should be formatting our resume. So most companies nowadays, they use an online or a software, which is called an application tracking system. And that's because most companies nowadays have so many different applicants that they can't humanly go through all the different applicants and filter through them. It just would take too much time. Typically, when an organization or company has posted a position, it means that they're short-staffed already, which means they don't have other staff on hand to go through and filter through all the different applications. So they use a software called an applicant tracking system, an ATS system, which means that a software is actually going to be filtering through your resume and the applications that come through for this position. It's not going to be a human, it's going to be a software. So we need to understand that when we format our resume. We also need to understand that people who are going to be reviewing your resume, if it gets through the applicant tracking system, that needs to be a summary. It needs to be brief. It needs to be something that someone can look over quickly, because there are a lot of other things that they need to be doing with their time. And if they're spending a lot of time to read through your resume, they're probably going to get frustrated and feel that there's a lot of time that could have been summed up if someone had taken the time to create a more bulleted, summarized resume rather than stating everything that they've done forever on a resume. It needs to be really specific and targeted to what you're applying for. And that allows it to be brief and summarized. You also want to make sure that your resume is online friendly, which means that it needs to be saved in a PDF format. And the reason that we recommend a PDF format is because when you apply for a position online, you will be uploading your resume into their application. And this sometimes causes resumes that are done through Word or other platforms, the formatting can get shifted. It can change. I've even seen resumes that are multiple pages and there's only one word on every page. And that's because they didn't upload that resume in a PDF format. They uploaded it in a different format, and the platform that they uploaded it to changed the format of the resume. This automatically looks unprofessional, and it can hinder you heavily in getting a job interview. So you want to make sure it's an easy thing to do, save that resume as a PDF and then upload it in that same PDF format. It saves your formatting that you've done, and it also helps it look professional and clean and tidy, okay? You also want to make sure that your resume states that you have the skills and experiences needed that have been requested in that job description. And you need to state how you've gained those things. So you'll do all of that in your resume. So where should you begin? So the first step in making sure that you have a resume that encompasses you and everything that you would bring to the table when it's career related is by brainstorming what you actually do bring to the table. You want to brainstorm your skills, what knowledge you've gained throughout the years of your life, traits that you might have that could benefit this company if you were working in this capacity, education, work experiences that you've done, volunteering opportunities, all of those things. You want to just brainstorm. I'd recommend writing them down somewhere, and that way you can reference them easily when you're actually typing up your resume. Something else to note is this helps you become it helps you see yourself as a valuable, unique individual. You have your own story, you have your own journey that you've been on, your own education and knowledge that you've gained, and this helps you feel confident and distinct as an athlete. So when you go through this brainstorming process, you realize what unique things that you bring to the table, which helps you just feel more confident in your application. So you also want to make sure that you format your resume appropriately. These are the different things that we recommend being listed on your resume. And later on in the presentation, we'll actually show you an example of this. But you want to make sure that you list your name, and your name should actually be one of the larger things that's actually on the resume. And that's, again, because you want your resume to stick out for the right reasons. If you imagine that someone has a stack of tons of different resumes, they're going to breeze through all of those resumes, and you want to make sure that your name is the thing that jumps out to them, because again, this is you taking ownership of this document, and so you want your name to be the thing that stands out the most. They'll remember your name, and then they'll remember the things that they're reading about you from your resume. You also want to make sure you have a summary statement or a personal statement listed, and this is basically stating who you are and what you are hoping to do in this position or in this company in a sentence. So it's going to be very short, it shouldn't be long or lengthy, and I'll show you an example of this in a resume example I have later on in the presentation. You also want to make sure you list your contact information, and this should be your email, your phone number, but you want to make sure that these numbers or emails that you're listing in your resume are things that you check regularly. Does no one any good if you list an email or phone number that you don't check regularly, or that is not professional. I've had students who have listed their phone numbers, but then they don't have voicemail set up, or the voicemail message that they have on their phone is super unprofessional. So you just want to make sure that you list professional number, a professional email, and that you have those things set up and that you check them regularly, okay? We also want to make sure that you list your education. They want to know where and when. So you'll list the institution that, such as your high school, or you'll say West Hills College Lemoore, and then you'll have parentheses in progress. And that's just to state to the hiring committee or to the people who are reviewing your application that you're still working on your degree. And that's totally normal and acceptable. It just helps them understand that you haven't completed your degree, it's still in progress. So they'll want to list the name of the institution, the month and the year that you started, and then the month and the year that you completed that institution or that educational goal, okay? You'll also want to list your experience and tasks done, when and where, such as your work experience. If you have previous employment, they'll want to know who your previous employer was, the title that you had there, the month and year of when you started, and then the month and year that your employment there ended. It can be the same with volunteer or internship opportunities. It would still be in the same format. You also want to make sure that you list the most current on top, and then in descending order to your first opportunity. And that's same with education. So you'll list your education with your most current on top, and then descending, so your high school would be the last one that you'd list. You also want to make sure that there's a section where you can list your skills. And this is because sometimes you might list your work experiences or your education, but you don't really list the skills that you've gained at those places there. You'll list that information under a separate skills area. Also, you'll have a section for awards or certifications, and that's if you have those things. If you haven't received any awards or certifications, you don't need to list those there. You don't even need to have that section. But if you do have awards or certificates, that would be where you would list it. You'd have a section and you would list those things there. You also, if you have space on your resume, you don't want it to be too full, or else again, it could be overwhelming to the viewer and they might then get frustrated that it's not easy to read. But if you're trying to fill up space on your resume, references is a great tool to add to a resume if you're trying to fill space. We recommend at least 3 references. 3 references seem to be a solid number when it comes to interviewing or applying anywhere. They typically ask for about 3 references. So having those references on your resume is acceptable. They ask for first and last name and then a contact number, which is typically that phone number. That would typically be the information for references. And again, we only recommend that if you're trying to fill space on your resume. If you feel like your resume is already full, you don't need to include references on there, as you can list those in your application when you apply. Okay. So you also want to make sure that when it comes to your resume, that you're standing out for all the right reasons. So it's visually pleasing. If it's too full of information, it's going to be automatically overwhelming to the viewer, and they might have a negative reaction to that. You want, when they look at your resume, you want everyone to have a positive reaction. You want them to visually like your resume. You also then want to be careful with color. I know that there's a trend out there now where a lot of people have a lot of color on their resume, and you want to be really careful with that, because ATS tracking systems, they don't necessarily know always how to read color. And so sometimes they might see color on a resume and then put your resume in an unqualified bucket, which means that you're then with all the unqualified applicants because it saw color on there and it didn't know how to read it, and so it just automatically filtered it out to not be sent to the forwarding group, which is what you don't want. You want your resume to be a positive impact on your future career, give you the opportunities for job interviews. So that means that you just need to be careful with color. We recommend that if students are wanting to have color on their resume, that you actually do it through grayscale. There can be a lot of different tones in a resume that can be done in gray or black, and it still gives a lot of dimension to the resume, and it can still stand out among other resumes. So with that said, if you do have color, you are running the risk then that the ATS tracking system doesn't know how to read it, and it dumps it out, and it doesn't forward it to the interview committee, okay? So just be aware of that. Your resume is your document, so it's up to you on what you do with it and what it looks like and the information you include, but we can only encourage you to list what we know most employers like to see when it comes to a resume, so that you have the most opportunities for future job opportunities, okay? You also want to make sure that you're careful with pictures. I have actually seen multiple resumes come through the WIN Center where students have some type of profile picture on their resume, and that, in my opinion, and in opinions in the WIN Center, that's not a recommendation. You want to be known as a great candidate for the education you have, for the skills that you've gained, for the experiences that you've earned in your life and in your work, not because of how you look, right? You're the best candidate for what you bring to the table through your skills, education, and experiences, okay? So we have some examples of what not to do. So as you can see, this is someone's resume that is not formatted properly. Just in automatically looking at this resume, it seems very busy to me visually. It's actually difficult for me to read. We did black out some of the information, and that's because it's private to the individual, but the formatting is not as clean and organized as it would typically be liked by someone that's hiring someone. I would not invite this person for an interview if I saw this resume come through for an application. So who would you invite for an interview? We have some examples. So automatically between these 2 resumes, because this is what the hiring committee is seeing right away, you just see their application and their resume, who would you want to invite to an interview? On the one side, we have a very full resume. It's very packed. And then we have Henrietta's resume, which is more slim. There's some areas that she doesn't have listed information. And then you have Alex, who has a lot of information. So just by the first impact of these 2 resumes, I automatically feel kind of overwhelmed a little bit by Alex's resume, and Henrietta seems much more clean and thought out. To me, if I was going to hire someone, it seems like Alex, even though he might have spent a lot of time brainstorming this information, in my opinion, he didn't spend a lot of time thinking how to best deliver that information. Where Henrietta brainstormed the same information, she has the same areas as Alex on her resume, but she actually thought out how to format it and how to make it more visually pleasing without overfilling the page with a lot of information. Typically, if Alex submitted his resume and it was sent to a hiring committee, they also have to review your application, a cover letter. They also will be reviewing your resume, and applications can be multiple pages. So they could already be overwhelmed and frustrated with all the information they're having to read from all the other applicants, let alone Alex's application and his resume. Where Henrietta understood that you want to be specific and strategic with the information that you're sharing on your resume, make it specific to the area that you are applying for, and then it's much more pleasing and not overwhelming to the viewer. Okay, so that's kind of, even though both resumes are examples of resumes, we do prefer Henrietta's because it's just more thought out, and it seems like it would be, I would like her to represent my company because I know that the work that she produces is thoughtful and intentional. Okay. Another two sets of examples here. Notice that Joanna, she has color on her resume, and Alexander is grayscale. So between these two, where Joanna might have thought through some of her past history, she didn't necessarily think about the formatting too much because she has used the same font, same size, everything. She might have changed up the color, but it's still, because of the font she chose, it all kind of looks the same. It's hard to distinguish the areas and the sections. Where Alexander's, they actually thought through how they were going to format the information that they brainstormed. And that speaks a million to the interviewer, to the person that's going through the applications, because they are able to separate, they're able to very clearly see who's taken time to develop their resume cleanly and clearly, and who has just thrown information on a page. So you need to be careful with how you are portraying yourself on paper in your resume, and making sure that you have brainstormed the information, but you've also formatted it and thought about it strategically and thoughtfully. It can go a long way in getting you that interview, okay? So last steps. Once you do have your resume determined and you feel confident in the information you have listed and how you have it formatted, we recommend that you also have it reviewed. You can have it reviewed by multiple people. We recommend having it reviewed by the Win Center, but we also recommend that you have it reviewed by someone, one of your faculty members. Our faculty at West Hills College Lemoore, they are great people that have a lot of experience in their field. And so even though you can have it reviewed by the Win Center, you have faculty that are working, that have worked in the areas that you're wanting to gain employment. So getting their feedback on and have it reviewed by them is great, and you should definitely take advantage of that. You also want to make sure that you save your resume as PDF. Remember, I mentioned that earlier in the presentation that you don't want that formatting to change if you apply for anything online. Even if you send your resume to someone via email, let's say you got an HR manager's email from LinkedIn. That's great. You should definitely send them an email and attach your resume, but you want to make sure that you attach it as PDF, because if you send your resume to anyone in Word or a different program, they can change the formatting, and you don't know what they're changing. As long as it's in PDF, that document is how you wanted it to be created. And whenever they share it with anyone or send it to someone, it's going to stay in that same formatting, okay? It can also be easily uploaded and emailed in this format, and it stays in the format. Okay. Lastly, you also want to make sure that you apply. Once it's reviewed and you have it saved in the PDF format that is great, then you'll be able to apply, and you'll want to complete that application and upload your resume. So we have a few tools where you can create your own resume. We use Microsoft Word in the Win Center. There are great templates for resumes on Microsoft Word. And then we also recommend Canva. Canva, you do need to create your own account, but the great resumes I used in this presentation, I actually pulled from Canva. So you're able to go into Canva and actually put your own information in those resumes, and then you can have one of those resumes as your own. If you need any help in designing or creating your own resume, you can definitely always contact the WIN Center. We're here to help you. So if you need any assistance or you want to talk about resume formatting or resume writing more in depth, contact the WIN Center. This slide shows our information. We have a phone number, 559-925-3388. This is always available for you from 8 to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. You can also find us out online. We are available through Zoom. So here online is our Zoom link as well. So again, that Zoom link, we have someone available from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday to help you. Okay, I want to thank you so much for attending this workshop today and watching this recording. I hope it's helped you, and I hope to speak to you again soon about resume writing. Bye.